Coming up, a brutal and mysterious murder of a young family. Could insect activity crack the case? Find out when Secrets of the Body Farm continues. You're watching National Geographic Channel presents the expert testimony of forensic entomologist Neil Haskell, trained at the Body Farm, proved crucial as a grisly case unfolded in Las Vegas, Nevada. People renting storage space in a mini warehouse had noticed a nasty smell.
Adjacent neighbors that had their storage, and they're complaining to the management, something really stinks around here and it's time to get to the bottom of it. Well, they got a warrant to investigate and then opened the storage unit up, found the garbage can in there, popped it open, and here is an absolutely disgustingly decomposing individual.
The body, mostly liquefied, was an elderly woman. Her daughter had rented the storage unit 2 years before. The daughter told police her mother had died unexpectedly. Grief-stricken, she stored the body while pondering funeral arrangements. But Haskell learned a different story from the bugs, specifically from the coffin flies. They're tiny, about the size of gnats, but they boldly go where other flies can't, deep underground. It's a highly evolved survival strategy. Underground, they have a feast to themselves.
Coffin flies got their name by their very tenacious ability to identify where humans were buried in the wooden coffins. They can burrow up to 4 to 5 feet into soil, access the coffins, and then lay their eggs, and they do their life cycle there.
It didn't surprise Haskell to find coffin flies in the container. What surprised him was not finding blowflies, death's quickest opportunists.
Blowflies can come in within the first seconds to minutes, and if the temperatures are warm enough, you'll see them laying eggs within the first hour.
But Haskell found no traces of blowflies, no flies, no eggs, no blowfly maggots. The blowflies hadn't gotten to the body. Haskell wondered why. Then it hit him. There wasn't time.
Mom wasn't left laying around for a number of days. Mom was processed very, very quickly, placed in that garbage can, and put in that storage area.
The evidence convinced the jury that the defendant killed her mother and moved swiftly to hide the body. The sentence, life in prison, no parole. Since its inception, the Body Farm has conclusively connected insect activity with body decomposition, allowing prosecutors to bring countless criminals to justice. Just as an archaeologist can tell how long ago a civilization ended by sifting through generations of rubble, a forensic entomologist can estimate how long ago a life ended by combing through generations of insects.
One of the ways of determining the length of time is to gather the maggots. You want to gather the largest maggots because that indicates the first hatch, and that would be a better indication of how long that individual has been dead, up to about 14 to 21 days, depending on the temperature and environmental situation in which the death occurred.
Recently, Mississippi prosecutors asked Dr. Bass to help pinpoint time since death in a brutal murder case. Someone had murdered a young family, a husband, wife, and their young daughter. The chief suspect, a relative of the victims, held a $250,000 life insurance policy on the child. But Bass was told the man had an alibi for the 2 weeks before the bodies were found. The suspect also claimed that he tried to visit the family twice, once in mid-November and again in late November. So he admitted to being at the crime scene, but he claimed on each occasion no one was home. Pinpointing the time since death was crucial.
I asked him to send me pictures of the crime scene, to send me photographs of the bodies.
Bass looked for signs of insect activity, taking into account the fact that the bodies were indoors, not outside.
The blowflies are outside of the house. It takes them a few days to realize, hey, there's a dead body or bodies in that house. How can I get in there, you see?
Finally, Bass spotted a key piece of photographic evidence: the discarded shells that maggots leave behind as they turn into flies. These pupa casings proved that once the flies finally reached the murder victims, the insects underwent a complete 14-day life cycle and then some. Bass's report concluded that the family was killed in November, the date matching one of the defendants' admitted visits to the cabin. The blowflies helped prove opportunity. The insurance policy provided the motive. The suspect was convicted of murder.
It does make you feel good that you are able to look at the scientific data which is there. And that's what I did. I didn't know any of the people involved in this at all. And from the scientific data, able to make an analysis that corresponds exactly to the events that occurred in this case.
Bass's work proved that in cases where corpses were decomposed, forensic anthropologists could make an important contribution to a murder investigation. Still to come, when the blood's been washed away and evidence is scarce, one investigator finds the answer is in the bones. National Geographic Channel Presents now continues. The chronology of decomposing flesh provides CSI units with useful evidence. But Steve Sims, one of the Body Farm's most renowned graduates, focuses on what's left behind after the bugs have picked the bones clean.
Here we do find a scatter 5 feet from somebody's foundation of their house, and I found thoracic vertebrae, which are human. Over here is the skull, and over here is an arm. And already dogs have destroyed a lot of the ends of the bones.
Originally, Sims planned for a career in archaeology. After one class at the forensic facility, he left archaeology in the dust.
This is the right 10th rib. Right here and right here. You see some trauma. Indicative of sharp trauma or a nice stab wound.
Today, he's taking bone trauma analysis to a new level.
One of the ways of killing an individual and trying to mask the identity of that individual is to saw the body up. Saw the arms off, saw the head off.
Sims's specialty is reading signatures, the telltale signs that saws leave behind when a killer cuts up a corpse.
I've seen everything used from knives to axes to serrated knives being used as a saw. I've seen power tools used. I've seen a bandsaw to cut up a body. I've seen circular saws used numerous times.
Bone is an engineering marvel. It's a composite material, a flexible matrix of collagen fibers infused with calcium phosphate for stiffness and load bearing. It's like steel-reinforced concrete, but lighter and stronger. It's a durable material, so the marks a saw leaves as it cuts up a body can endure for years. Sims took up his grisly specialty after a detective asked him to identify a notch in a bone.
I said it's a saw mark on an arm bone. And when I said it's a saw mark, I thought I was proud to give him some information. Well, he looked at me and he said, "But I already know it's a saw mark. You're the bone doc. What kind of saw is this?" And I didn't know.
Sims needed to know. It was his third dismemberment case in just 1 month. He set out to fill this gruesome gap in forensic knowledge. It would take him 15 years of research. To the naked eye, all saw marks look alike.
It turns out that's not true. Every tooth leaves another mark, and the reciprocating action of these teeth or continuous motion of these teeth leaves lots of indicators of tool marks, lots of characteristics, and with enough characteristics, many times I can get, for example, the number of teeth per inch in a tool used to dismember a body.
Now Sims can read a saw mark the way a handwriting expert can dissect a signature. He can even spot false starts or skips in the stroke. And he can tell police what kind of saw to search for in a dismemberment case.
You want to know more than a saw. You want to know what kind of saw, how wide that saw is, how wide the blade is, how wide the tooth is, the minimum kerf width, the number of teeth per inch, and how that saw is used to dismember a victim. All saws look similar or look identical. They really aren't.
A killer may think that washing blood off a blade is enough to cover his tracks, but not if Sims is on the case.
If you listed 5 people in the world who were the world's leaders in this, Steve would be one of those 5.
Like fingerprints, footprints, and tire tracks, tool marks can crack a case, even years after the crime.
Bone trauma is a moment frozen in time. All the soft tissues and so on disappear or change or deteriorate with time. Bone doesn't change or deteriorate. We just clean it up. It's there. It's good evidence. It's evidence you can take to court.
The process of normal body decomposition and bone trauma are well documented at the body farm. But some killers try to cover their tracks with fire. Not long ago, burned bones marked a dead end. Fingerprints, faces, wounds, all gone, burned away. But the Tennessee scientists were confident other evidence could be sifted from the ashes.
Okay, I bet that fits right there.
To know what to look for, though, they'd have to learn precisely what happens when fire meets human flesh and bone.
What I'm about to do is I'm going to build several little contained systems. Right now I'm just testing for heat.
Elaine Pope, a PhD student, got these body parts from an anatomical laboratory to which corpses had been willed or donated for medical research. Before these limbs were provided to her, they were used by medical students to practice surgical procedures. She starts with an arm.
And I'm going to photograph it before I place it in the fire. I'm going to do each element that way and document what it looks like before, including the size, the shape, and the position of it.
During daylight, smoke obscures the details, not so much from the eyes as from the camera lens. So Pope experiments and photographs at night. As the arm heats, it actually begins to move.
What I want to do is see how the arm draws up and how it reacts to heat. When the arms react to heat, they go into the pugilistic posture, which is where the muscles of the arm, the flexors pull the arm into flexion like this. And so I want to observe that process as it occurs.
As muscles burn, their fibers shrivel and contract. The stronger muscles, usually the flexors, overpower the weaker ones, the extensors. In fact, the arm's flexing is so consistent that if a body is found with the arms extended, it could be a sign of foul play.
The body will assume that pugilistic pose at all costs unless stopped from doing it. The muscles are very strong and it pulls you into that pose. So if I see something that goes against this pose, I'm suspicious.
If an arm was outstretched and it wasn't able to assume a pugilistic posture with the elbow, that would possibly indicate that the arms have been tied. Even if there's an absence of the actual material, they could have used string or rope, which would have burned away.
But is that movement the same in an accidental house fire as it is in an intentional fire made hotter by accelerants like gasoline?